Yes, you do. And we are back ready to answer your questions, ready to help you resolve your computer problems. We did just get the YouTube video going as well. You are listening to a Faster PC live technical support. We are having a little bit of technical issues because I have a new computer. I'm in the process of getting it set up. And in that process of copying my data over from my current the computer I have been using, I corrupted the Windows profile. So when I went to log in today, because again, my audio is not all the way set up to stream on the new computer, I actually had my profile was corrupt, which means Windows logged me into a temporary profile. At least it was able to log me in. But listen, I had to get everything set up. I had to get logged into Facebook, logged into YouTube. I just got logged into YouTube just now, trying to get logged into Skype. I wasn't able to get logged into Skype. I actually am logged in currently with on my phone, and hopefully hopefully that will actually work. And I'm trying to see, maybe I can even get, I have Skype for Business. Skype on my computer is not loading. Otherwise I would be connected that way, and then I would get all the audio coming over. But sometimes you just have to roll with the punches in computers, and fly with it. And thankfully we're making the best of things, and getting things working here. Now, one thing again, we are talking about, and we wanted to talk to you about, because I know that one thing that's happening this next week is Thanksgiving. And you know what happens right after Thanksgiving is Black Friday, and people go berserk. I mean, hopefully we won't have any really crazy times out there at people trying to fight, in some people even getting beat up and into fights, and maybe even killed. That's happened. It's not worth it. Don't get that crazy. But hopefully things won't be that crazy. But people are going out to get these deals on computers, and this is something that we see happening. And one of the things that we see quite often, because we're the ones that they call quite often to help them set up their computer, and we get into the process, and we say, I say to myself, wow, this computer is slow. In fact, sometimes customers go out and spend money, and I don't care how low of a price you bought it for. If you buy a computer that's slower than the one you're replacing, it is not a good deal. Or another thing that people do is they go out and buy a computer and they think, wow, I got a great deal. But then they find out the drive on it is so, and it might even be quick, but they find out that the drive on it is so small that they can't put anything on it. They have to subscribe to Microsoft 365, or use some other type of cloud storage if they have any data to begin with. And even when they go to install Windows updates, they can't install Windows updates because it's just not working, and because they don't have enough room on the drive. They actually have to get a flash drive, plug it into the computer. Microsoft downloads files onto the flash drive and saves their old Windows operating system. Maybe it might go onto the flash drive if there's not enough room on the primary drive, and then it's able to do the update. And you really want to steer clear of those types of things. And we actually had a customer in the shop. We're working on their computer, and they're saying, "Hey, this computer's slow. Why is it so slow?" Well, the reason it's so slow is because you bought a slow computer. Listen, when you buy a slow computer, you know there are some things that we can speed up. If it's slow because the hard drive is slow, and sometimes that's the case. In fact, we had a customer, a business customer. They spent over $1,000 on a computer. I mean, you would think with spending that much money that you would actually get a good computer. It should be fast. Well, this computer, unfortunately, was not fast. And so what actually happened was we actually were able to, we actually worked to get them into that system, and we set it up, And I did mention to them, this computer is slow, the processor's fast, you have enough RAM, but the hard drive is slow, and you really need to get an SSD drive. And the thing is, when they bought the computer, they asked for a fast computer, and really they should have gotten a fast computer, but they didn't get a fast computer. So this is something that we actually were able in that case to do a backup, and we were able to go ahead and help that customer get into an SSD drive, and that customer was quite a bit quicker. But they had to spend money to do it. That's the kicker. When you don't actually buy the right computer to begin with, and they could have, for the amount of money, in fact, for less money than what they spent, they could have gotten a faster, better computer. In fact, we could have built them a custom built computer for less money than what they spent that would have come with an SSD drive automatically. But they got what they got, and we dealt with it and we made it faster. If you have a fast enough processor and enough RAM, and you have a slow hard drive, we can correct that. We can upgrade the drive. But it's even better. Why not just buy a new computer to begin with that's fast enough to begin with? You shouldn't need to actually go out and update your computer because it's not fast enough to begin with, because it should be fast enough. You should get a computer with a fast enough hard drive. So we're gonna go over here what you can actually do here, and how you can make sure that your system is the fastest, is a fast computer, that it's running quickly, that you're not going to have situations where your system is not performing up to the optimum level of performance. And so this is something that we want to encourage you to make sure you do. And what we're going to talk about is what you want to look for in a computer. So what you want to look for in a computer is you want to look for a computer that's actually fast enough to get things done in a quick manner. What you're going to want to look for in the CPU. The CPU is, I've called it the brains of the computer in the past, but really, I mean, think about it. Your brain is so much more capable than a CPU. All a CPU does really is do mathematical calculations, and everything really that happens on a computer involves mathematical calculations. It's ones and zeros. Believe it or not, everything that you see, everything that you do, it's ones and zeros, and it's hard to imagine that, but the CPU is what does that. It's what actually carries out those calculations. A faster CPU will do that faster. A slower CPU will do that slower. So what you're going to want to do, what you're going to want to look for with a CPU is, you're going to want to look for, if you're buying a computer with an Intel processor, you want to stay away from a computer, which means do not buy a computer that has a Celeron processor or a Pentium processor or a Pentium Gold processor. Those are not systems that you should actually look for. Also, you would want to look for something that has an i3, an i5, an i7. There are i9s as well. Most people aren't going to need an i9, and in fact, they're very rare. They're very expensive, but they are very fast as well. But you probably don't need an i9. But that's something that you'll want to actually look at. Getting a system in that speed. Now let's talk about the generation. When you look at the model number of the Intel processor, let's say it's an i7-12700. what that means, the 12 is the generation. So it's a 12th generation. If you buy a current processor and it's Intel, it should start with a 10. That would be actually about 2 years old. 11 would be about 1 year old, but you are still going to see some new computers that might have 11th generation processors. And then 12 would be the 12th generation processor. We actually built two servers for large customers this year, and the first one we built with an 11th generation Intel processor. And the reason we used an 11th generation was that that's what we could get for that system. At the time, the processor that we wanted to use was not available yet in the 12th generation. Some other 12th generation processors were out there, but this particular one was not. We wanted to have one that actually had video built onto the CPU so that they didn't need to buy an extra video card and so that they didn't need to use the extra 20 watts of power that video card would pull. We wanted this to be energy efficient and also very fast. So we got the 11th generation. Well, that was in the springtime of this year. Well, this summer we were able to build another computer for another client, and that actually had a 12th generation processor. Same speed tier, there, but it actually was a 12th generation. Now, if you're buying an AMD processor, you want to steer clear of, which means do not buy an E-series processor. You don't want that. If you buy an Intel Celeron, you buy an Intel Pentium Gold, you buy an E-series processor, chances are you're going to have a slow computer, and you're going to wonder why is this computer so slow? And it's going to be because you bought a slow computer. You bought a computer and the processor on a computer, in a lot of cases, if it's a desktop computer, you could change that. If it's a laptop or an all-in-one, you're not going to really be able to change that processor. In most cases, it's going to be soldered onto the board. And even on a desktop with the big name computer companies, you're going to be very limited on changing that processor. So you're going to want to, you're not going to really be able to go from a Celeron or a Pentium Gold to up to another system. You're going to want to make sure that you actually that's going to be on the shelf for the general population. But with the AMD processors, you might see a few third generation Ryzen 3, 5, or 7, or even 9, and they'll actually their model number will start with a 3. They made a few fourth generation, and then fifth generation is really the current, and I have seen a few sixth generation processors. So you'll want to look at what the model number starts with. Like a 3700 Ryzen 7 3700 would actually be a third generation Ryzen 7 processor. And my new laptop that I just got has a Ryzen 7 5825U, which is I think it's a U, but it's designed for a laptop. But it's a fairly quick one, but it's also a low power. It uses 15 watts versus the really high end laptop processor will use 45 watts. But with a laptop, it's real important to be energy efficient so that you can have low power draw, so that you're going to actually have longer use. But you want to also make sure, again, the processor is fast enough. Do not go out there and buy a computer that has too slow of a processor. It will not end up well. So we'll be back in about 5 minutes. For those watching on the live stream, let's see if I can get get OneDrive signed in so I can play some audio for you guys. Because right now they're hearing some pre-recorded spots over there. Got about 4 minutes left in this break. Coming back live in about 2 minutes. Coming back in 1 minute. Coming live in about 5 seconds. Yes, you do. And we are back for the final segment of today's show. We are talking about how you can make sure if you go out and buy a new computer, and I know a lot of people are thinking about it this time of the year, and a lot of people are going to do it. And if history, if what we've seen in the past holds true, well, most likely a lot of them will actually buy a computer that's slower than the one they already have, and we don't want you to do that. In the last segment of this show, we actually talked about which processor to get. Make sure that you do not buy a computer that has too slow of a processor. You can actually, one of the things that we've shown here is we've actually shown how to actually go over, and let me see. I'll go do this. Go to a full screen for those that are actually watching on the live stream over on Facebook or YouTube. And if you're not watching, you can go watch after the show's over. Um, we will have during the breaks. We actually, since the audio, I'm actually connected to the studios through my phone, so I don't have the audio feed coming into my computer. So probably should have just gone ahead and streamed with the new computer. Would have been a lot easier. But but I didn't. I had to go on the fly, but um, that's the only difference in the show today. You'll still be able to see my screen, but you want to go to cpu.userbenchmark.com, and what you want to do is click on compare. So when this page comes up, that's CPU. You want to just launch a web browser in the address bar. That's the top bar. Just type in cpu.userbenchmark.com, and then click compare, which is on the menu bar on the right side, right at the top. And you're going to want to type in your current processor. Like for instance, my processor in the system that I'm actually on right now is a 55. It's an i7 5500U, and it's actually I can actually see. You want to see actually how fast it is compared to another processor that you might be looking at. Like for instance, there's one of the processors that's out there right now in an i7 range is the Intel Core i7 12650. Let's see, 12650H. That one's pretty quick. Maybe it's a 1260 00. I don't know which one this is actually, but I have seen this, and I think that this one is a very fast processor that's out. You see, it's 81% faster than my processor, and that particular processor is really quick. I'm not 100% sure whether that's a laptop processor or not. But if you're looking, for instance, at an Intel Celeron, there's different processors that are going to be different speeds on the Celeron, and some of the newer ones are these in series Celerons. We've seen that quite a bit. If you look at that, this in 3000 Celeron, and I don't know exactly. Well, this one was released actually about the same time as my processor, so it's not one of the newer ones. But you can see that my processor is 138% faster than that processor. So if I were looking at a computer, and again, this isn't a current processor, but if it were a current processor and I were looking at this processor at a computer that had that processor in it, well, if I bought that computer would be significantly slower than my computer. So that's something you want to really just use that. You don't have to guess. And the way you can find out what your processor is, you want to hold down the Windows key on your keyboard, go up to E for Explorer. That will launch the Windows Explorer. Right click on this PC, go down to Properties and left click. And when you go to Properties and left click, that'll bring up the system properties. Now, depending on your operating system, it might show differently than what mine is showing. But one thing that you will see as you scroll down, or maybe you might see it right at the top there. In fact, I don't think this isn't really showing me the processor, but it's supposed to there, and that's probably because I'm in a the operating system's not working quite right because I corrupted my profile getting my new system ready, getting all the data over to this system. But typically you'll see your processor listed there, and I've actually named my computer with my processor model number, but you can actually get your processor from here. Now, some earlier versions of Windows 10, Windows 8, also Windows 7, you'll actually see this in the system control panel application, or in the control panel, you can go to System and you'll see this. You'll see what processor you have. But right-clicking on this PC, just again hold down the Windows key on your keyboard. That's the key that looks like a 4-pane window. And then press E, that launches Windows Explorer, and then right click on this PC, go down to Properties and left click. That brings up the system properties, or in the newer versions of Windows 10 or Windows 11, it brings up the About section of the Windows 10 or 11 settings, and it'll actually tell you what your processor is. So you'll want to compare your processor with the one you're looking at. And if you're looking at sales, I know people are looking at sales. They're trying to figure out, hey, what processor should I go with? Well, you want to actually compare your processor to the one that you're going to get or one that you're looking at to make sure that it's at least fast enough. And you know what? I wouldn't say that it's worth it to pay money on a computer that's maybe only 10%, the processor's only 10% faster. If everything else is working, why would you do that? It's not going to give you significant performance advantage, and you'll be better off just keeping your cash. Really, and other things that you want to think about and want to look at, you want to actually look at how much RAM is in the system. So computers have a few different types of memory. So you have permanent memory, which is your hard drive or an SSD drive. And that's the memory that's there all the time. It's permanent. Your programs are there. Your operating system is installed there. Your programs are installed there. Your data, which is your pictures, your Word documents, your Excel documents, your PowerPoint presentations, if you have any of that, your videos, your music, any of this data, all of this is data. You might not have all of these types of data. PDF documents, which could even be your tax returns. If you file taxes with TurboTax or another tax software, you're going to have software, your data file for that. If you've used Quicken or another financial software, you're going to have information there. Some people have spreadsheets that they keep track of their finances with, or Word documents where they keep track of their medication list. So when they go to the doctor, they don't have to remember what they have. They can just print it out and they give it to the doctor, or they can email it to the doctor even. So that's documents. Those are stored on the computer. But when you boot up your computer, the operating system loads into RAM. When you open up a program, it loads into RAM. When you open up Firefox or Chrome or Edge to browse the web, you're doing that in RAM, and it takes and websites take up a lot of RAM. One thing that we're seeing, we used to say 4 gigabytes was enough. And by the way, with an SSD drive, we have seen some customers that run with 4 gigabytes and they do fine. But you're going to be a little bit limited on how many pages you can get up at once. We're seeing, and we started recommending 8 gigabytes. What I would say, if you're going to buy a new computer right now, it would be best if you could get a computer that either has more than 8 gigabytes or is upgradable so that you can actually add to the RAM. And my new laptop actually came with 8 gigabytes, and it's actually soldered on the motherboard. I'm not crazy about that, because if that RAM goes bad, the motherboard is bad, which means that, well, I'm going to be replacing the motherboard or replacing the computer, one or the other. And so, that's not something that's really ideal, but it met every other criteria that I had, and I had some very specific criteria that a lot of computers did not meet. It also has an open slot. And that open slot can hold it can hold an 8, it can hold a 16, it can hold a 32, it can hold a 4. So I can go all the way up to 40 gigabytes of RAM on that laptop. Now, I bought a 16 gigabyte module, which will give me 24 gigabytes with the 16 plus the 8. Most people aren't going to need even 16, but we are seeing quite a few people with 8 gigabytes of RAM that are using up 85, 90, sometimes 95% of their RAM utilization just by launching a browser and open up a few tabs with Pages. So if you can get more than 8, if you can get 12, if you can get 16, that's good. Most people aren't going to need more than that. But if you have a lot of tabs open and you keep them open for a while, Firefox, Chrome, Edge, they'll use the RAM that you have. So that's RAM. The next thing is the drive. You really, if you're buying a new computer, you want an SSD drive. And by the way, on RAM, backing up on RAM, we can upgrade the RAM on a lot of computers, but just find out ahead of time whether that model is upgradable, because some computers come with 8 gigabytes soldered onto the motherboard, or maybe even 4 GB soldered onto the motherboard, and no slot for additional RAM. And in that case, you are not upgrading that. If it doesn't meet what you want, if it's not what you need, you're out of luck. It's not going to accomplish what you want. So you want to actually get over there, take a look, and find out what the situation is as far as RAM upgradability. Next is the hard drive. You definitely, if you're going to buy a new computer, you want a new computer with an SSD drive. Don't settle for anything less than an SSD drive, but make sure that SSD drive is large enough. Some low price computers have a slower but not too slow processor, and they have maybe 4 GB of RAM, and they have like 32 or 64 GB of an SSD drive, and it may even be soldered to the board, so you can't even upgrade it. And it's not enough for most people. In fact, hardly anyone would be able to function with that, and you won't even be able to install Windows updates without a flash drive in most cases. So you really, what you're going to want to do is look at your data storage right now. We don't really have enough time to show you that. We'll talk about that on next week's show. But look at how much data you're using, and make sure that you're getting a drive that is at least that large. For most people, a 256 GB drive is fine. Some people can get away with 128. Not a lot of people, but some people can. Some people need a 500. Other people need a 1 terabyte. My new laptop has two 2 terabyte drives, so it'll have 4 terabytes of storage space. Most people aren't going to need that much, but I can tell you I can fill it up. But most people aren't going to need that much. Most people, 250 GB drive is fine for them, but make sure, watch next week's show. We'll show you how to do that. But if you're buying a computer, make sure it's faster than the one you already have.